Well, we welcome you to stress in the workplace. That's not a good topic, I imagine, for many of us, but we want to talk about that in the OCED course. How does stress affect our employees and the work that they're doing in schools and in industry, all over? How does this stress? Stress is an area that we need to talk about, and you say, well, this is a fine time to talk about it. It's the end of the course, and I think it is, because some of you right now are completing your portfolio. You've looked at the templates on the website. You're starting to gather the material needed to match everything that you're going to need, and we're going to be talking about that in another lesson. But you're working on this. So this lesson today, Stress in the Workplace, Lesson 9, we want to talk to you about protecting yourself, protecting your family and your employees from a terrible disease of stress, and it becomes more prevalent every day that we live. So I want to talk about stress. Stress is, as we say, one of the chief illnesses our society faces at this time. It's a terrible. Not only do adults face the ravage of a stressful life, children face similar, even worse. So it's a terrible thing. We're facing a lot. We're facing all of these things are hitting us square on the face right there. Stress is coming down. You're saying, I've got stress at home. I don't seem like I can relax. I don't seem to be able to handle my work. I seem to be behind in my night studies, all of these things. So we want to look at this. What is stress, and how does it relate to your employment? Well, you know what it is, and let's define it. Many definitions that can be found related. For this course, what we're doing today, it will be defined as non-specific response of the body toward a single series of events. In essence, the body responds to the many environments and events each day. The body can be stressed even if the events are positive. So that's important for you to remember. It's non-specific response. So we are getting into a situation where that even if something is good, they've had people who had a great prize won through some type of contest and had a heart attack because it was just too much good news at one time. And of course, some of you out there are saying, I'd like some of that good news right now to win something. And you say, I've never won anything in my life. I'll take my chances on the stress that's going to come. Well, there are good things and bad things, and some writers have basically looked at stress and said that it amasses in both things, the good and the bad. Well, let's look at some of the things that are causing you and I to feel kind of tightened up, and we just feel really rough. Overcommitment of personal resources, that seems reasonable. Do some of you agree to everything? Some of you agree to do anything anyone says. You know, you're ready to join that particular club, join that organization. You're taking 9 hours in night school. And that's the reason in our Occupational Ed 4360, 4361 cooperative education, we want you to take it at the end of your degree, but we don't want you to take it with a bunch of courses. We tell you, get rid of your core courses before you take it, because you're just adding stress. And that's why it's a prerequisite to have your core courses done. And again, other things are mentioned on our website that you must have done that are prerequisites. But essentially, the core is one of the main things that needs to be completed. Well, another thing are family issues. Family issues would be our second thing that causes it. We have a lot of family stress. People who argue with their spouse or significant others day in and day out. They have such things as aging parents, and we'll certainly want to look at those things in your stress level. So you may have all of these going on simultaneously as you're taking this course, and you've got to be able to compartmentalize your work on this course and separate it from those things, because if not, you're having that bleed through and it's beginning to just clog you up and you can't write. I had one lady that was writing the articulation and talked about some of the bad things in her life, and she couldn't write it. We had to go back and talk about it, and had to talk to her about dealing with writing it because it just stressed her out to think about all things in the past. And we've had bad things in our past that's happened. A third thing that we have are financial obligations. Financial obligations, that's tough because you have money that you owe, you're overcommitted, and that is causing you to be stressed. We have a situation in all of our lives that every time we think we're a little bit ahead, we have a disaster. The children need something, the husband or wife needs something, we need an automotive repair, we need to do this, we need to do that. There's always something that comes up. So financial is a problem. In a marriage counseling sense, money is one of the major issues for marriage problems. So we urge people who are having marriage problems in regard to money to take another look at it, see if they can create budgets and work together to solve it. Major life changes. Here's another one that we need to mention. That's a big one, major life changes, because things that hit you all at once, job changes. They tell you you're going to move to New York and you're living in San Francisco. You're living in the deep South and you've got to move to Illinois. You're moving to different cities. That's an issue for you, major life changes. Another stressor is illness. After life changes, illness is an issue. People who have an illness issue strikes them. And I remember a young lady who was a friend of one of my sons who came down with diabetes early in life, a major debilitating thing at the time. And of course, we're making great progress in those areas now. But that changes lifestyles, and as adults, an adult onset of a different disease. Anything from cancer to stroke to heart disease always changes some of our lifestyle and adds stress to us, to both going to school and in employment. So it's illness. Aging itself is the next one. Aging is a big one because as you get older, the mind seems to work in many cases, but the limbs don't seem to function like they used to. So you seem to say, well, you know, I didn't realize I'm just not as productive as I used to be. So you need to deal with your schedule the best you can. So where it took you maybe this long to get the yard mowed or whatever you do, it takes you a little bit longer, and you have to account for that in your life. It means you have to be able to deal with that. Another one I think is important is complexity of living in society. I think at the bottom of this slide you see complexity of living in society. That's a difficult thing. Society's hard to live in. New laws, new changes, new views. Some of you say, well, I'm opposed to some of these things that are being said and being done, and I don't agree with that, and that's hard for you to deal with. It's a hard thing to be able to adjust to the changes that are being made. These are all stressors in society, very much so. And look at another one. You have to see what your role is in society, trying to find out where I fit. You know, we were talking about careers earlier, but what is my role? What roles a person is to play? What am I going to be? I'm going to be a father, a professor, a church member, a soldier. All of these things I've got to wear as a hat, and I'm trying to say, how do I find that balance between all of these? That's tough, is to find your balance, and you're going to have to realize that you've got to set these times, as we talk about in the course setting your goals. You've got to do one step at a time. Another cause of stress are coworkers. There's always someone or a group of people who are offensive in the office, and that's a particular thing that we deal with. There's someone there that is not always going to get along with you. Albert Ellis, the psychiatrist, talked about people who have irrational beliefs, and one of the irrational beliefs is that, you know, everyone's going to love and appreciate us. They don't. And if you expect everybody to love and appreciate you, that may not happen. Besides causes of stress, another one is supervisors. Obviously, your managers after coworkers. Supervisors now is a problem for us. This is an issue. People who are managers over us sometimes do not share the same priorities or even the same values as you share. And you've got to decide in creating your goals and looking at where you're headed, can I work in this environment? Can I be attached to this organization? Can I do that? That's a tough one. Do I want to work for her all these years? Do I want to stay in contact with him? Another one is your job and career changes for the 21st century. This century that you're operating in is a century of change. Great change occurs almost daily. And so what you're looking at is, what am I going to do? How is my job changing? Well, that gives that stress. The next one on the screen is fear of. I have certain fears. You have certain fears. All fears are not necessarily irrational, but some are. Sometimes we fear success. Sometimes we fear change. Sometimes we fear different things that are happening in society. And those fears translate into this stress we were talking about, the body's nonspecific response. And that's a tough thing. And all of us need to analyze, looking at this group of slides in this lesson, what our fears and problems are, what we're doing. And then you need to address these things. You do not need to just hold them in. So we urge you at this point to take and make a list of things that are created a problem for you. Are these things able to be solved? Are they external or internal? What have you done to solve them up to this point? Look at all these questions I'm asking and be able to decide, look at every one of them and decide, how have I dealt with these questions? How have I dealt with them? What do I do? Could all of them be solved? Are there external pressures bombing me all the time? Are they something from in me that are maybe irrational fears? Maybe it's my fear of success, of getting out. You know, we have people that get very close to finishing their bachelor's degree and never finish. And they'll take 6 or 7 years and just will not finish. And you're saying, well, why don't you just take that last course? Well, I'll get to it. If they finish that degree, it puts them in a different category and they have to live up to those expectations. So that's an important thing that you should remember. The type A behaviors, that's a stressor, isn't it? You may have taken the type A test. There seems, some of us will deal with diet and exercise, yet who seem to be placing ourselves in a high risk category. I always talk about a type A person gets sick, has a heart attack, but they report back quickly to work. Isn't that interesting? They are overdoing it, burning the candle at both ends, as they say, and they have a heart attack, and they're the first one back on the job. Again, they go back quickly. I talk about a type A person as an individual sitting in an office, writing electronic mail, talking to somebody across, eating a banana, and also talking on a cell phone, you know, doing everything, maybe 2 lines at the same time. That's a type A1 personality. Now, type A1 people are leaders. Many times you'll find them in leadership positions, but you'll also find them stressed out, telling you that they don't have time to do anything. You have as much time as the President of the United States. The President of the United States has a certain amount of time that he or she does what needs to be done. President John Kennedy used to get up and read newspapers at a time. President Franklin D. Roosevelt used to do his swimming to help in reference to his polio. Different presidents had different things that they did to deal with. President Dwight D. Eisenhower dealt with golf, was his thing. Each person who has been a chief executive has had to find a way to relieve stress, and they've all done these types of things. So an employer might say, I don't want a type A personality. But, of course, you would have the low type B, maybe too slow. The type A would be a candidate for disease. So could you become in the middle there? Could you be between a type A and type B, one that's not too hyper, as we say, and then one's not too sedentary, which is a B? Type A personality or type B. That's an interesting thing. Or could we have an AB? That's something to think about. Think about where you are. Do you want to relieve your stress a little bit? Do you want to cut down on it? Do you want to organize your life? Well, this portfolio is your test of organization. You want to do that and work on it the best you can. I think that's a problem. One of the problems that's an ethical issue is that could any of us be tested for stress? Could we be discriminated against in the workplace? Should employers know the medical possibilities of future illness? What's your opinion? What about confidential medical records? So if you've had a stress-related disorder, is that going to get out to employers? And we know the answer to that. Very difficult to keep these things under wraps. So that's an ethical issue that we're all wrestling with, and you will wrestle with no matter what the laws are about the ethics that employers know how stressed you are and what's going on. That's just something we ought to think about, is what we ought to do. So if stress is reduced for you and employees, yourself, you're probably both at this time, there must be a way to reduce the impact of stress without removing him or her from the workplace. That's a point that we need to make. We need to reduce the stress without taking them out. There are ways to reduce your stress. Organization is one. Looking at what you're doing each day, keeping kind of a tablet of what you're doing and beginning to see where you spend your time. Looking to see if you can organize yourself into blocks of time to deal with things. Getting rid of things that are trivia. Resigning from organizations that you should not now be in because you don't have time. Making a determination of what is important to your life and what is important to your future. All of these are somewhat suggestions in addition to the exercise and diet that we have. But this is important. It's not going to go away in society today. It's a problem that's going to remain. And we're going to continue to address stress the rest of our lives. Stress itself is not going away, as we say. It's going to be here. So we urge you to replay this information you've heard while you're going through this course, and it might weave right in there to some of your goals that you've thought about. Pull back and think about what you're doing. I think if you will work in small blocks of time on this portfolio now and trying to finish it up here in some of your last weeks, I think it'll help. Thank you for listening and watching this particular session. I hope it was not too stressful. Thanks very much.